Good evening, everyone. My name is Caroline Van Vlartigan. I'm a proud Concordia graduate, alumni, and I am your moderator tonight. I'm also the morning anchor and a reporter for CTV Montréal. J'ai le grand plaisir de vous accueillir ce soir. Je suis votre modératrice et nous avons une soirée excitante pour vous. Merci à tous de vous joindre à nous. Welcome to our Big Little Lecture. So now, without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce tonight's Wild Talk guests. As a graduate of Concordia's Department of Theatre, James Tupper has gone on to great success as an actor, both on stage and on screen. His acting career spans 30 years, although he doesn't look like he was born that long ago. He's performed frequently in theater in New York City and in many off-Broadway plays. And many of you, I'm sure, know him from his numerous television series such as Men in Trees, Grey's Anatomy, Mercy, and Revenge. And also, many of you have probably seen him on the critically acclaimed HBO miniseries Big Little Lies. And this fall, he also appears on ABC's A Million Little Things. Put your hands together and please give a warm welcome to Mr. James Tupper. Hello, James.
Hi. Thanks for having me. This all started out because I was shooting something this summer in Montreal, and I was like, I should go back to Concordia because I think I could really help students that are graduating make a transition to become a professional actor. Because that's a bit of a rocky thing because you're out here wearing Peer Gynt costumes, and it's true. And then you're suddenly like thrown into little television rooms where your knees are touching the casting director, and you're like, what is this, like, what's happening? It's just a totally different skill. So I offered my services. Cut to, I'm on a stage talking to you guys, which is fun. Hi. Thanks for having me. Thank you.
We can't wait to hear all about how you made it to Hollywood and beyond, and back to Montreal too, and Canada. Also with us this evening is Canadian film and television director John Lecuyer. Hi, John.
Hi.
For those of you not familiar with John's work, Curtis's Charm was the first feature film that John both wrote and directed and became an instant cult hit. Curtis's Charm was screened at more than 50 film festivals around the world, right, John?
Yep.
And won a special jury citation for Best First Feature at the Toronto International Film Festival. Not this year's edition.
No, this is like when I was young. Yeah.
Well, we're all still young up here, right?
Last week.
Since then, John has added, among other films, St. Jude, The Riverbank, and Confessions of a Rabid Dog, the latter of which won him top prize at the Hot Docs Canadian International Documentary Festival. Some of John's television credits include Queer as Folk, Da Vinci's Inquest, and Murdoch Mysteries, which are known to all of us.
Oh, really? Oh.
Well, I think most of us know those. And John is also the co-founder of the Montreal Film Company, which offers service producing, script writing, directing, and crewing, right?
Which I do all of those jobs.
You do every single thing.
It's really just a place to put my paychecks into.
A one-man band.
Yeah,
Let's hear it for John Lecuyer. Okay, so let's jump right into the questions, shall we? I'm going to start with a few for you, James.
Yeah.
So you grew up in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia.
Dartmouth, yeah. The dark side.
The dark side?
What?
A maritime boy.
Yeah.
You moved to
No, it's not Halifax. Halifax has this jaunty, salty history, and Dartmouth we call the dark side.
Okay, so that's where it came from. Okay. And you moved to Montreal to attend Concordia University and then obtained a master's degree in theater from Rutgers in New Jersey. But let's talk a little bit about your time here. And well, first of all, what fueled your passion for acting? What was it that made you want to be an actor?
That's a really difficult question. You know, every time my life steered away from it, I've had a very curvy course to get to where I am. And every time my life steered away from it when I was like in a family crisis or had no money and I got a job as a waiter or I did something, like I would always, that would be the thing that I missed so much. Like it'd keep me up at night thinking about it. Like,
But
I
were
felt
you
it was
a
I felt I had
born
a destiny.
actor? Like as a child, were you
Yeah.
a performer?
No. In Nova Scotia, they all sit in a big circle,
Okay.
and they called me up from downstairs. Jimmy, come up here, entertain us. So I would do anything. I'd make fun of them. I'd make up characters that seemed like them. I had puppets I would play with.
So you loved it from the get-go.
But nobody in my family is an actor. Nobody's a performer.
But your father gave you support. You're telling me backstage.
Yeah, my dad did. Yeah, he couldn't support me financially or any other way.
Right.
But he would always say, "You can do it, Jimmy. You can do it. I know you can."
And you can, and you have. And you performed a number of plays on this very stage that we are sitting on.
Many. This stage is legend for me. Like when I left Nova Scotia the first time, I remember coming up here and seeing a production of Twelfth Night and just being blown away. I'm like, this theater school is amazing. I was like probably 18, 19 years old, 20 years old. And I just was so inspired. And then I got to do it myself. So I've spent 3 solid years here, like doing classes in the day and then doing plays at night.
And
that all builds up, like it's an experience that really creates a career.
Absolutely. We're looking at some of your productions right here. Do you recall these
That's
productions?
Peer Gynt!
There you are.
Pear is sad.
So can you share some of the highlights of your time here at the theater department? What are some of the memories that you have of being here?
Man, that's amazing. Well, it was a conservatory program back then, so we were doing like Lucy Bertrand. She was a movement teacher, and she helped us figure out how to use our bodies and be expressive. And then I remember Ralph Allison was the head of the program. And he was a very good, he had done Jacques Lecoq in Paris, and he'd come over. And Michael Devine was head of the acting department for a while, and he's a guy that's gone on to the National Theatre in Ottawa, I think. He's an amazing guy. And we would work all day in these studios, and then we would come to the theater at night and just, put it all together and try to do plays for people.
Were you in this department as well, John?
No,
Okay.
my brother went to Concordia, and I loved Concordia, but no, I went to Ryerson.
Oh. Okay.
For 1 year only.
That's enough of you, John.
Yeah.
Let's bring it back to James.
Didn't we beat them?
No, we'll get to you later. I've
no,
got questions for you
I'm
too.
here for him too.
But James, after you left Montreal, and it sounds like you had a great time here, you performed in the Circle Repertory Company in New York in the 90s and the early 2000s. So at this point, you were on stage a lot. Tell us, what's been the biggest difference for you between acting on stage and jumping to television?
No, it's a totally different skill. I mean, it's all, they're both truth-based. Are you guys mostly in performance? Am I talking to an audience that is
Do we have actors in the house?
Oh,
We got tons of actors.
Because I don't. It's the one thing I'll talk to actors about acting. I won't talk to the general public about it because I think that is really boring to everybody. But
I think it's fascinating.
Do you really?
Yeah, absolutely. Because we all want to know what's going on in the mind of a person when we're watching them on stage or in the little, well, it's not such a little screen. Well, it's actually a very small screen these days. But what's going on?
Yeah, but don't we all have an imagination inside of us that you project yourself into situations, you imagine what you do. There's a bank robber and you come in, you're like, I go there and I do this. And don't we all have that or no? Is it true? It's just me? Oh no! No,
I think some of us are better at it than others, really.
Well, I have that, and so I would when I was alone, I would daydream all the time. I would imagine these different scenarios and people and rhythms and the way that people interact or what phrases I would hear. And I would put them in my body, and I would pretend to, in a fun way, and I would pretend, not in a crazy way, and I would pretend that I was in these scenarios. So when it came to doing a play, it was super fun. It's now it's people are actually going to watch this, and it can be real. But Circle Repertory at the time was a really fun, amazing company. They had done just probably hundreds of plays. Lanford Wilson was there then, and Terrence McNally. They were winning amazing prizes every single year. And at that time in my career, I was trying to get noticed by anybody, which is the frustrating part when you come out of a drama school, especially if you're a guy, because you're not really in your full power yet. So I had to go and try to get work anywhere I could, and you try to get an agent, you try to get out there. At Circle Repertory, I auditioned for them, and then they had play readings, and we would just every week, we would 2-3 times we would read plays. And I got really good at hearing and reading plays and seeing characters and being improvisational. That whole period of time was an incubus for what would come later. But it was also like frustrating because you're watching like Johnny Depp do major roles and you're like, oh, why can't I? What's wrong? How do I get ahead? Which is why I'm really here, because I thought it'd be really fun to talk to the acting students about.
So you say that as a man, or you said it takes time to grow into your strength, I guess, as an actor. At what
into
point,
your Liam Neeson?
At what time? At what point did you feel that you had that? How old were you?
No, I think I always kind of felt like I had it inside me, but you don't get the opportunities.
Right.
People often ask me in interviews, they're like, "Why did you take this role?" And it's like, because it was offered. What are you talking about? Why was it that it's like you're not talking to Tom Cruise?
Okay, well, talking about taking on roles, before you made a name for yourself in Hollywood, you acted in a few commercials. Right?
I hope they have those.
I did.
And I think our audience... 50?
Tons, yeah.
Okay, well, I don't know where this ranks in number 50, but let's take a look at one that I think our audience
might
get a little bit
no way.
of a kick out of. Let's roll the tape.
Oh. Wait, what? Emmy. That is so embarrassing.
That was amazing.
That was great.
Was that a German beer company, or what was that? Was that German?
I blocked it out.
It was something to do with... Anyway.
Reese
Very
Witherspoon and I... no, I'm just kidding.
So, you did a few of those
Yeah.
to pay the bills.
I did, yeah. And I would do theater at night. That's what I was doing.
And did that help the transition to theater? Or is there two different worlds again?
I was in a really funny situation because I didn't have any relationship to America, so I was on an F visa, a student visa.
Right.
And then I had 1 year of practical training where I was like, you have to work in your field technically. Which is, you can violate that rule, but if they find out, you're out of there. So I was like trying to do anything I could to like survive. I was like living alone in New York, and like I had shared an apartment with some friends, and I was like trying to just make enough money to pay the rent. And that was, and then I eventually got into SAG, and then I eventually, through all the commercials, like it just gives you time to incubate, to grow, and to learn.
Meet people.
Connections. Well, I never thought that connection thing was very valuable.
No?
No, and I would say that
it's not about who you know.
No, I don't think so.
Interesting.
It's about what you can do when the camera's on, honestly.
Wow. Well, that's encouraging
I
to
think anybody
hear.
that ever does any casting coach or nonsense like that's baloney. Because if anything ever happens between you and a person that's casting or anything else, like you're done. Because they'd be like, I don't want that complication on set. Like, done. So I would say that, that's my advice. Right?
Oh yeah, totally.
100%.
Yeah.
It's not like that. It's not what people think.
No, it's true. I guess that came from the 50s or something, because it doesn't seem to be part of our industry in the past 30 years.
Well, we've had a couple of scandals lately that have
Well,
kind of
there
reinforced
are,
that.
yes, this is true.
So,
there are some of those old school thinkers maybe, but maybe not.
But it never ends up well. Like, it's not a thing that you want to...
So, given how fierce the competition is in a place like New York and Hollywood, what was it that made you stand out? What did you aim for in auditions to make yourself stand out?
That's a really complicated question. Like, auditioning is an art form. So when you're working on a set, you have everything there. Like, the person is dressed, you're dressed in costume, they're dressed in costume, everything looks, the reality is all around you. And when you go into an audition room, it's a casting director with a camera and a person reading on a chair, and you have a chair. They say that an actor goes through the same level of stress that a test pilot does. Like, because it's $1 million. Like, oh God, if I get this job, it's $1 million. Like, it's $50,000 a week for the next 8 months. And you're like, wow, that's incredible. And how the heck do I calm down enough to be able to like focus and deliver? And it's a special skill. And some people have it and you can really work on it, but it has a lot to do with breathing. It has a lot to do with knowing the exact movement in every single scene, what exactly you want to accomplish. I would always plan something really fun afterwards. Like, I play music. I would plan a jam session or something, or a trip down to the beach, or just something to get. So I would have that. I'd be waiting in my head to do that, like a positive energy. So you're not like, you don't collapse into some kind of nervous nonsense, you know. And then
I believe in laughter before doing something.
That's great too. Laughter's great.
Having a good
100%.
laugh before you go out and do something that scares the bejesus out of you really relaxes you.
Yeah. It's hard because they're analyzing your behavior and your heart's racing, you know, and you're sweating like, oh my gosh, this could be like a major life-changing moment for me. It's funny with Big Little Lies, when I auditioned for it, it was so, David E. Kelley wrote the words, and I've been doing so much theater for so long that the words were so easy for me. They just came right out of my mouth like butter. So it was the opposite. It took away the stress because you didn't have to act in between the lines. You just had to do the actions on the lines. It was an amazing experience because I just auditioned with about probably 20 or 30 other guys. Guys that had reached a certain level were asked to come in and audition for it. You know, Ethan Hawke said no, and then there was us, and we kind of all came.
You had a role on the TV show Men in Trees.
You've only been back from sea for a few days. You need to get some sleep. Why don't I make you some sleepy time tea? It always helps me.
Sleepy time tea? No.
Come on, it'll relax you. Get you back on track.
I can think of something else that can relax me.
Whoa. Okay. Can you tell us a little about that role?
That was the major turning point in my whole career because up to then I was like, they see you in a certain way. I remember going into Fox and the casting director there was like, yeah, you're sent on a meeting, great, sit down, how are you? And he's like, I'm great, how you doing? He's like, we have a lot of little parts we could do. And I'm like, that's not what I'm doing here. I'm going to be a leading actor. And he's like, excuse me? And I was like, that's my destiny, man. That's what I want to do. And he's like, I'm okay, so that's great for you. And he's like, but they're so used to this little list of people. It's like, how do you get on it? How do you see yourself, you project yourself on it, you manifest it, and then you go do it. And so this came along, this audition, and I was like, this is me. Like, I can do this. This is like in my wheelhouse. So I went to the first audition. And this is a great cautionary tale, or a great tale for what you guys have to go through if you're actors. Like So I went to the first audition. And it was the writer, Jenny Bix, was there with a couple of casting directors, and we did it. And I got in my truck and I drove home, and I was like, oh, I've never felt emotional after an audition. I was like literally so upset because I was like, how could I blow that? How and what was I thinking? How I raced it. I was like, I didn't feel I was in the rhythm. I didn't feel it was right. I got home, and the next day, I booked a Wendy's commercial. And I was like, okay, well, I'll go do Wendy's. And then they called the next day, and they're like, we want you to come in and read for the director and there's some of the producers. And I was like, I can't, I'm doing Wendy's. It's so funny. So they said, well, when are you available? And I was like, the following day. And I went in and I did this audition, and it went even better. That's when I felt I really got the groove of it. And it was James Mangold, this amazing film director, and Kathy Conrad was there, and Jenny Bix, and all these Hollywood legends. And I was like, wow, this is incredible. And they said, we want you to come and audition for the Warner Brothers studio. And I was like, okay, what's that? Let's go. So like about 4 days later, just enough time to really screw with your sleep, because you're daydreaming about your life. And then I go to the Warner Brothers, and there's this little tiny room, and there's 10 guys in suits. And I feel like my knees were, their knees were there, my knees were here, and I'm like, what? And there's no way to have a reality. So I just focused on the script and I did it. And I guess I was pretty nervous, but it went well enough. And then they're like, great, we're going to ABC Studios. And I was like, wait, what? And then I had to get in my truck in the rain. It was one of the rare days it rained in LA, and I drove to ABC Studios and went way up this tower. And I remember walking in, and there was 60 executives in a giant theater like this, and they were like, just do the scene. And so I had to walk on the middle of the stage and do the scene. And James Mangold came up to me and he whispered, he goes, hey, it's theater here. And I was like, dude, I got that. Because I'd been doing it for so long, and I did it like theater, with the energy comes more from the center of your body. And I knew that moment I had it. But you had to go through these escalating tests, and then once I had the project, I never wanted to be a carpenter again. So I hired a public relations person. I was like, yeah, get me in everything you can. Like I don't want to go back to that.
So theater is from the stomach.
Yeah,
and
film is in here. It's the
television's
same
head,
level of
yeah.
intensity, but it's in here, and you have to be very focused, very still, and you can't like do anything extra with your face.
Right.
And then theater is like it comes out of your body. It's like energy.
So Men in Trees, how many seasons was that? That was.
It was 2. It was like 40
2.
episodes. Yeah.
40 episodes. So that was steady work, and you're now making a name for yourself.
Yeah. Then I had
Big
a
enough
real,
to get another role on another hit television show.
Hey, Mark.
Hi, I'm James Tupper, and I play Dr. Andrew Perkins on Grey's Anatomy.
I know that a lot of you are only here because this has been mandated. So, let's talk.
Oh yeah, I was a therapist.
Any-
You remember?
Yeah. I wasn't in therapy. I was the therapist.
Just a little TV show called
Yeah.
Grey's Anatomy. Just a small little thing.
They're
Still
super.
going?
Grey's Anatomy is really cool because they didn't do this whole star thing. Like everybody had their own exact same trailer, and everybody was it was very ensemble.
Oh,
Rob
nice.
Corrin, the EP there, the producing director, was like very hands-on, and he really wanted people. And Sandra overly set the
I was gonna say,
tone,
did
by
you
the
bond
way.
with Sandra?
Sandra and I know each other, and then of course we met again. But she was at the National Theatre School when I was here, and she's very detailed in her work. She would do the most beautiful monologues. She'd do it so perfectly. It's like listening to a jazz musician play, and you're like, wow, that's incredible. And at the end of it, they say cut. She go, that sucked. And I was like, no, Sandra, that was amazing. But she's like, no, I need another one. And every time it's like this. It's just like this obsession with detail, breath and detail, what behavior, human behavior. Now she's like doing Killing Eve, and she's killing it.
She's obviously, that obsession has worked out for her,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
In Revenge, you played dad to another Canadian actor, Emily Van Camp. Do you consider this to be one of your breakout hits? Because this ran for 4 years on ABC, right?
Yeah.
So was this sort of the clincher, or?
No, I think Big Little Lies was the one that really,
Okay.
like after this show, I could walk around and people would be like, I love that show, Revenge. I'm like, thanks. And they'd be like, why are you thanking me? I'm like, no, I'm on it. I'm the dad. And they're like, I don't think so. I'm like, what are you talking? So it's so funny. But when I did Big Little Lies, people started really recognizing me. And they'd be like, oh, you're the James Tupper.
So Canadian of you to thank them.
Totally.
Well,
Totally.
so Big Little Lies, HBO sensation, a critically acclaimed debut. Big Little Lies goes on to garner 8 Emmy Awards, and you play Nathan, ex-husband to Academy Award-winning actress or actor, Reese Witherspoon.
I've heard of her. Yeah.
I hope so. Also, fellow cast members from season 2 include Oscar winners Nicole Kidman and the Meryl Streep.
Meryl Streep.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay, so does it ever get old? Or do you, when you
No.
look at your name next to these people, are you
No.
pinching yourself?
No, the first time I met Meryl Streep, my breath was gone from my mouth. I was like, what? And I remember watching her. We went to New York for the premiere, and I was on the second floor, and I was looking down at the lobby, and she got out of the elevator, and she walked like a few steps, and she was like, someone recognized her, and they're like, oh, I love you. And she's like, oh, hello, so nice to meet you. And then she goes 4 more steps, and it's the same thing, and 4 more steps. And she, like, everywhere she goes, she's so identifiable. And I call her the Queen of England, because she's like, oh, darling, Celia. Like, she has such a nice way with people. But that level of fame, no, it's amazing, because I've been watching her my whole life. Same with Nicole, and same with all these people.
I've had nothing but sorrow since you said we were through.
Was that you singing?
I didn't expect this to be a This Is Your Life. It's so funny. I had no idea. They asked me, "Do you want to know the questions?" I'm like, "No, it's fine. I'll just be me because it's better. You'll get to know the room." But I didn't know that this was all going to happen. It was me singing my heart out, and Jean-Marc called me. Like I'd started working on the song 10 weeks. I was 10 weeks into working on it, and he called me and he goes, "You know, James, there's like people that have spent their whole lives working on their voice." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, "Would it be okay if we put a little track?" And I said, "Okay," but I sang my lungs out when we were shooting it, but no, it's augmented with
So
another
it's not
singer.
you?
Yeah, it's not exactly me.
Oh, okay. All right. Do you know who it is? Whose voice that is?
No.
Okay. All right. So I want to ask you about, and thank you for being patient, by the way. We're getting right to you, John. Yes.
I came to support James.
Okay.
We're buddies, and I'm just here.
So, Big Little Lies, very much a story told from a female perspective.
It is, yeah.
How do you feel about that?
No, I'm proud of that.
What's going on right now with women telling more stories?
No, I'm very proud to be a part of it. I'm very proud that Reset, her production company, I pitched them an idea. I had this idea. I was like, "Oh yeah, you know what? You guys should do it." And they're like, "Does it have a woman involved in it? Is it a woman's story? Is it like?" And I'm like, "No." And they're like, "Then they're really focused on listening and hearing and telling female stories." And I'm super proud to be a part of that. I think it's amazing. I'm Canadian, man. Like women.
You're a nice guy. Yeah.
Totally, 100%.
Do we know if there's going to be a season 3, by the way?
I don't know for sure, but I feel like there should be, and I think HBO will be tempted to if it wins Emmys, if it pulls in Emmys for them in the next round. And there's more of a story to tell there. I mean, yeah.
And hopefully you'll be part of it if there is.
Yeah.
You'll
I
be
got.
there. You haven't
Did
been
you guys
killed
see it?
off or anything, have you?
No, I'm not dead.
I'm not dead yet.
Not dead yet.
Okay, John, you've been so patient. Let's turn the attention to you. You've now had the opportunity to work with James on a teleseries you're directing right now called The Detectives. Detectives. Sorry, Detectives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It could be called The Directives. So it's a CBC.
Let's make it all about you.
James and I did. We just met this summer, and we shot a 2-hour special, which is a retelling of a story about a serial killer who preyed in the gay community in Toronto for 20 years. It's kind of in the news now. This court cases were happening in the spring, and so we wanted the best actor, and it was a very difficult story to tell.
Sensitive. I had to get it just right. It was also it was sort of documentary too. Like we used some of the interviews from the real people that are actually involved in the crime.
So we had to blend that truth in, which is the point James is bringing up. Bring that truth to it, but also so that it could perform, like just be part of maybe a cathartic part of maybe a healing process, as well as reviewing just what happened, how this guy was able to continue doing what he was doing over the time that he did. And it was, where the police erred and where the police succeeded and stuff like that. So it was a very emotional, 10 straight days of shooting. And I met him, but we bonded so well. I just fucking adore this guy. Because he's got that actor's soul, he's a sincere, honest, good man. And at the base of it, he's there to service the character. And it's the thing that I fell in love with directing was working with an actor like with an Ellen Page or Tim Hutton or James Tupper. You see somebody go so deep inside something, and it's a very courageous act. It's actors to me are the greatest thing. It's I wish I could do it. I can't. But when I see it done beautifully, it's like fluid poetry. It's just brings something alive that was not there before. And James did it. And then I fell in love with him. So.
And we have a project together.
And we have another project together.
So do you play a police detective in this?
I do. He's a real guy too.
Okay.
Frank Indesiga, He's the head of the Toronto homicide.
Head of the Toronto homicide, yeah.
We might have seen him interviewed.
It was
I've seen him on television.
You've seen him a lot.
Right,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
It was interesting because it's like when you're doing somebody that's real, you have to decide if you're going to imitate them or you're going to do the soul of them. And I was like, I don't think he's famous enough. Like if you're going to play Winston Churchill, you have to look and sound like him. But the head of the Toronto homicide, I'm like, not that many of the viewers will know.
What was fascinating about it, though, was that the real cop, what was so compelling about him was how much this case haunted him, and it was so much part of that cop's soul. So when James brought that to the character, who brought that part of the soul to the story, made the most
I didn't
sense.
interview
Instead of
him.
mimicking someone's actions and clothing. And
Is that what drew you to him? Was that you saw him on television and said, "There's a character I want to put in something," because he is so.
James was the only guy who could do this role. Like the number one role. This is one series where they will spend a lot of money, and I don't know how much money he got. I want to know.
A lot.
But they will spend a lot of money on that number one role because they're all true. They're all true stories that we're dramatizing, and there's real families out there, and there's real. Usually, people watch American stories and this and that, and it's one of the few opportunities people have had in small communities in New Brunswick and Alberta and wherever to have stories like this told about something that really gripped a society and a culture and a group of people. And people remember those things.
Absolutely.
A murder or a mass murder of a family, or whatever that happened during their youth. You remember those things as being something that really shocks your community. And anyway, so James was, I tried to think of other names, but it was really only James who could do this role.
Thanks, man.
And you'd seen his work previously?
Oh yeah, I've
obviously.
seen pretty much. I thought everything. I didn't see the Grey's Anatomy, but
Or the commercial?
or the commercial. No, the beer commercial.
That would have been the clincher for sure. But obviously you've become very close since. What's it like to direct a close friend?
Well, we became friends on set, and there's so much I can't tell you. There's so much, there's so much that is parallel going on in James and my life.
Oh, that's true too.
And it's.
No, but when we were working on a scene, I would be like, there's something, you just did that last one. And you come over and you go, that last moment with the thing, do the thing. I'm like, oh, of course. Like, we were definitely on the same page when we were working together.
So you're like kindred spirits.
Yes.
There's something.
We're both serving
Jeff,
we're both
right.
serving the story.
Right. As a director, John, what kind of things inspire you? Is it always reality? Well, obviously not always reality-based. You've done a variety of different things.
Well, this is the first time I've ever done true stories like this. I've only ever done drama, and again, it's the fact that it's a true story is the catch for me. But I feel more comfortable in just pure drama because you don't have to sort of reference something like, "Wow, the real guy did this."
Right.
But I think there was a nice challenge, and I think you embraced it, and I think you find it's just another component of what's great. I mean, there's a lot of shows on Netflix and stuff now that are focusing on these kinds of true stories and trying to dramatize and tell the story in a new way that's not in the old way that they used to just have a cop talking for 45 minutes and then a shot of a knife falling or something on the floor. They flip that whole genre now, where they shoot like 95% drama, and then there's 5% of
just to remind
the
you that it's actually a
documentary
real
stuff.
story.
Yeah.
So as a director, what can you advise the thespians amongst us how to stand out, how to impress someone like you?
Sitting in casting sessions for 20 years, you develop a great deal of empathy because people come in cold and they're meeting 3-4 producers and the director, maybe the writer's there as well, and they have to stand there sort of. It's in a way you're naked, and it's a very. My empathy always goes to the actors so much, and I try to find, where they're going in the right direction and try to enhance that and encourage that. Or if they're completely missing it, maybe try to rethink what role they could play or do something else, or at least give them a note they could go home with so that their next audition will work better. Good. But I find the audition process is ground zero for the beautiful pain that makes great drama. And it's people are courageous enough to go do that. How do they stand out? There's myriad ways.
So the scene from La La Land where she's pouring her heart out and they say, "Thank you very much," or take a phone call. Please tell us that doesn't happen.
No, I've had people take a phone call.
And I've heard stories.
Like a network in the studios. When I was in a studio, I was doing an audition. The guy took a phone call. Like, what?
So that happens.
Oh, I've heard stories from actors telling me that it's brutal sometimes. Not to scare anyone off, but that it can be very rude. There's the ego of a director as well, which is a horrible thing. Ego is horrible in almost all cases. But sadly, a lot of people get caught up in that in this industry, and they forget that they're part of a team and that it is what it is. We're factory workers doing this type of work, and we're lucky to do it. But some other people just live in that world, and it's a very horrible place to be. And I think it's a good thing to know exists, because if you have your guard up, you won't be damaged by it. Because I think actors are really vulnerable souls, and they're very open souls.
I've heard people say that you have to go into an audition just being that character and leaving your own ego behind, so that if you do get the refusal or something horrible happens, like they pick up a phone, that your own ego isn't hurt. Is that possible?
Listen, I just did an audition for a show I really, really wanted, and I didn't get. I thought the audition went really well, and I didn't get it, and I was like really upset for like a couple of days. And then about 2 weeks later, I found out Steve Carell was cast, and I'm like, well, yeah, I want him to do it. I want him. He's amazing. So I don't know. There's a million different reasons for them to reject you.
Yeah, and that's a very good point as well, because I've been in sessions where you have, the money people are there, a couple producers are there. It's not a project I've initiated, so I'm there and I'm working to get my corner of power in that politic, and an actor can leave after doing the most amazing audition in the world. But I can tell that one of the producers isn't getting it, is distracted, is texting or whatever, and has somebody else in mind, and they're missing it. And I know that person goes home and says, I knocked that out of the park. And I want to call them, I want to tell them, you did. It's just in the politics here, like, I won't get the financing to do the rest of the show if I don't go with,
hire a star, an A-lister, or somebody, right?
When I did the audition for Big Little Lies, like I did the first time I did it, I felt, wow, that's it. Then they called me in to meet Jean-Marc, and I had seen Wild, his movie Wild, and I thought, he's Canadian, how do I not know this person? And I love that film, Wild. It's funny, when it first came out, it was Reese Witherspoon walking on the Pacific Crest Trail, and I'm like, I'm a dude, I'm not watching that. And then I saw it on HBO, and I was just like, this movie, it's like one of the most beautiful redemption stories I've ever heard. Anyway, so he came in, and I did the second time, and it went really well. And then a week later, they said, come back and do a third. And I got them the third time, and he's like, I'm sorry, man, there's so many producers. I think he was talking everybody into it or something. And I think I went a fourth time. I remember going back and back and back. But it was, they have to, it's a consensus vote. So,
you mentioned Steve Carell.
My point is, don't take it personally.
Yeah, don't take it personally.
There's no rejection. It's just good work.
Yeah.
Your job is to do a good audition and walk away.
Walk away. You mentioned Steve Carell. We've heard Clint Eastwood's name mentioned. Are there, well, there must be, what actors out there do you admire today, and whose work do you look at? Inspiration.
I met Dolly Parton really early on in my career. I was like, I made it. And she was so sweet to me. She kind of flirted with me a little bit in the elevator. And I was like, what?
She's also a very good actor.
But it's funny. It's like the people that you really admire are the people that you saw do the movie, I met Peter Falk. And I remember my dad loved him as Columbo, like early on. And that really took my breath away. And then Meryl Streep. She blew my mind when I met her. But I don't know. When I go to work, I'm just like, it's like a guy with an instrument and you're going to play it. You're like, okay, let's play, let's jam, let's do it. On Big Little Lies, like everybody knew how to do it. It was like halftime in the Raptors locker room. Like you're like, every single person in here can do an amazing thing with the ball. Everybody. So when you got on set and you were working, it was super fun. Everybody was on your side to make a great project,
Must be a great feeling.
It's
being
amazing.
a symphony of talent like that.
Yeah, it's the opposite of like, commercials.
So how do you both define creativity in your respective craft? John, I'll start with you.
How do I define creativity?
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's not forcing my own. You have a vision of things, but you have to be open to how that grows and changes, and incorporate. Take like hearing great ideas, working with an actor. It's an exchange. I think sometimes directors might sometimes feel they have to dictate everything. You're the director, so you dictate, and that's what it is. And I think you lose so much. The experience of sharing and respecting the fact that, working with James, he brought so much to the role that no one could pre-imagine. But you know, I just, yeah, I think just being open to recognizing what a good idea is and sharing in the credit and making the best thing. And again, that's trying to keep your ego out. It's always there.
It sounds like it's putting your ego aside again.
Yeah,
so
you try
open.
to.
Right.
You always have an ego, right? No matter what you do. But I constantly on set have this battle with myself of like, just, you know, watch and listen as well for those beautiful moments. And yeah.
Yeah, like I think the two most important things for an actor are instinct and vulnerability. Like just right off the bat, if you have an instinct for what to do, like you're just, it means that you're just so present that you're responding and acting and you're moving, and then to be vulnerable and allow people to see into the window and see themselves. But I think when I'm being creative, it's really funny because like I'll get a part and I'll read the script and then I'll go on a really long walk and I'll just lay under a tree and I'll just dream, I'll just daydream. I'll daydream who that person is, like what is that? And then I'll walk home and little things will happen and I'll read it again and I'll go daydream again. You just, because it comes out of a very personal, like inside place. And then by the time you're on camera, like it's like creating a painting. Like you layered and layered and layered and you think this moment is that and that moment could be this and what's Reese gonna do on that? What's she gonna attack? Like what's the, and then by that time you're like, it's the rhythm of the person's in you, what you wanna do is in you. Like the world kind of feels real.
Do you also do a ton of research though? For example, on
I don't research like
No?
in the way of reading an encyclopedia, no.
Okay, so you don't go out with the police detective and see how he works.
Oh,
and
for
all that.
sure. I'll go
In
watch.
this-
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
in
for
the
sure.
detectives you
Yeah.
do. Okay.
Like I think I would say that as a person, I'm obsessed with human behavior, like the way a person behaves. I remember like when David Cohn, the pitcher for the Yankees, pitched a perfect game. I have this memory of him like falling on his knees and being like, oh, like his whole life suddenly meant something. His whole life he had attempted to do this incredible thing and then he was doing it. I remember just seeing his body do that and being like, that's amazing. Like that's pure. That's the real thing happening. And so I think I've always thought about, I've always been obsessed with
How do
behavior.
people behave? Yeah.
Well, like how the body actually functions in space, like how it actually moves and the way people breathe and think and see and talk and,
Speaking of giving meaning to life, you have 2 children.
I do.
Yes, 2 boys.
I do. 2 boys, yeah.
How old are they?
17 and 10.
Okay.
I do.
So how do you maintain the balance between James Tupper, the actor, and James Tupper, dad?
It's funny because when I'm being a dad, first of all, being a dad is my favorite thing in the world, period. And they're the sweetest boys. Oh, that's me teaching them how to skate in Vancouver last year.
He's such a great dad. Atlas was on set.
I love being a dad.
And he's just hilarious.
You
He's like
can't
a
be
mini
creative
James.
when you're responsible for another person's happiness.
Right.
Like I don't attempt to open a script and work around when they're around, but I'll schedule in the day like 2 or 3 hours so I can go and work and then. But the young guy wants to be an actor, and I told him these are the 2 things I told him. I said, if you want to be an actor, you have to know these 2 things. He's like, okay, Dad. And I'm like, first of all, wherever you go, like people might recognize you, and you might have to sign autographs or do like Instagram. And he's like, okay. And then I said, secondly, you can make a lot of money, like millions. And he's like, I'm okay with both of those. but I said, I'm not, my dad.
What's the problem?
Yeah, my dad told me you can do it. I say, you want to do it? Do it. I'm here to support you.
That's fabulous.
Nepotism.
He's got the Instagram tongue going already too.
What's that?
He's got the little Instagram tongue going.
Oh, he does?
Got that going.
Oh, he's so
Very
silly.
cute. So you enjoy how much time do you get to spend with them? I mean, given your,
whenever I'm home.
whenever you're
with them,
home.
yeah.
And home is?
LA now.
LA, okay, all right.
Although I bought an apartment in Montreal.
Yeah, James is our neighbor. We can't reveal the address, but maybe after a couple of drinks and cocktails we'll find out. Any advice for aspiring actors and directors?
What advice?
Well, that's good advice.
I don't know. There's so much to say about it. I've been obsessed with it for 20 years, but I would say that if you really want to do this, no one can fire you. You can do it for the rest of your life. You can pursue it.
Be tenacious. Don't give up.
I guess so, yeah. Don't fire yourself.
Don't fire yourself. Good advice. Well, listen, I want to thank you both for your very candid answers to these questions and for sharing your experiences with us. So my thanks again to you, James Tupper and John Lequier.